Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege to have you guys joining me here today as we talk about all of our favorite things. And of course, that is movies, some television, a little bit of other things here and there as we go. Now, here's how today's show is going to go. I'm going to start off by taking 5 topics that you guys have selected and emailed into me. Now, how do you get a topic or a question on the John Campea Show? It's simple. You just email me, john@thejohncampeashow.com, and put the word topic in the subject line. Also, guys, as always, keep those emails to 90 words or less. Now, once we're done those first 5 topics, we're going to go into the live questions phase because a whole bunch of you guys are watching live. And we'll take your questions live. 2 ways to get your questions live. One, of course, is using Super Chat. The second, if there's time, we will go to Twitter after that. So, with that out of the way, let's not waste any time. Let's jump right into it. And we start off with question number 1. And the first question today comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Jeff Bingham, who writes, "There's a very sizable dichotomy in response between The Rock's 2 starring vehicles this year, Jumanji and Baywatch. Do you think this is attributable to the inherent natures of these properties that would allow Jumanji to be good and keep Baywatch ever from being good no matter what? Or do you think Jumanji did things relative to the Jumanji property that Baywatch failed to do relative to the Baywatch property, among other things?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yes, so we've got a brand new Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movie opening today. Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. I've been saying for a week, I'm going to have the review up tomorrow. I'm going to have the review up tomorrow. And I never got around to putting the review up. The review will go up today. I promise it'll go up today. Anyway. And it is a significantly better film than Baywatch. It's getting a very good response. I will put up my review a little bit later today, but I'll tell you right now, I like the film. I had a good time with it. I thought it was fun. So I like the film. Now, the question becomes, well, and this goes back to one of the things that drives me crazy that a lot of people who are film fans will try to make arguments out of. Like, for instance, I'll say, I don't know, let me pick a movie that was just good, whatever. Okay, let's take the recent Fast and the Furious film. Okay, whatever. I said, you know what? It's good, just fun, action, excitement, fun, whatever. And it really works, so I give it a positive review. But then I get some people say to me, and what I would say about Fast and Furious as well, it's like, it's not a thinking man's movie. I mean, it's not going out for any Oscars. It's a popcorn fun film, blah, blah, blah. Inevitably, what happens is I get some people go, well, John, Transformers isn't trying to be an Oscar film, and it's just trying to be popcorn fun and excitement. So why do you give Fast and the Furious, Fantastic and the Furious? Why do you give Fast and the Furious a positive review and Transformers a negative review? You're biased! Anyway. And of course, what I then have to respond to, and this is the same kind of question, right? It's like, well, wait a minute, why The Rock's in Baywatch, and it's just kind of a silly, fun comedy. And now he's in Jumanji, which is kind of a silly, fun comedy. So why is Jumanji getting good reviews and Baywatch got bad reviews? Simple, because one sucks and one doesn't. So what I would say to people who would try to bring up the thing to me about Fast and Furious and Transformers, and look, if you like Transformers, that's great. I'm not shitting on your opinion. If you like Transformers, that's great. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the reason why I liked one and didn't like the other is because, in my opinion at any rate, while yes, they were both going and trying to kind of be the same thing, not taken too seriously, fun popcorn, turn off your brain a little bit, sit back and enjoy action film. Yes, that's what they were both going for. The difference is one accomplishes it and one doesn't. Just because they're both, fall into that same vein and they're both going for the same thing does not mean they both worked. So if we bring that same thing over to Jumanji and Baywatch, again, these 2 films are kind of in the same vein. They're not to be taken too seriously. They're both going for the fun popcorn, just have some good laughs and whatever. Okay. But the difference is in Baywatch, it didn't make me laugh. Oh, they were trying to do it, sure. But Baywatch did not make me laugh. More times than not, when they tried to make me laugh, they just made me roll my eyes and want to bury my face in my popcorn, which I'll be honest, I generally do anyway. But, so that didn't work. They're going for the same thing in Jumanji. The difference is in Jumanji, they make it work. Their jokes are funny. The times they try to get us emotionally attached to their characters works. The times they try to set up in a fun way the characters being endearing and you wanting to root for them works. It didn't work in Baywatch. Now, maybe it did for you, and that's great. But for me, it did not. But that is constantly one of the biggest frustrations I have when talking about movies, whatever. It's like, if I talk about one kind of movie that's, silly, blah, 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 and I say it's good, then inevitably people say, well, John, this other movie you said that wasn't good was also just fun and silly, not taken seriously. Well, because one worked and one didn't. Just because they're going for the same thing doesn't mean they accomplish the same thing. And I think what you're finding is there's a lot of people, not everybody will agree. There are going to be people out there, some of you I'm sure will like Baywatch more than Jumanji, which is totally fine. That's why film is subjective. But I think the reason you're hearing more positive buzz for Jumanji is because it actually works. This is a fun little movie. I'm not going to do my review right now. I'm going to save that for later. But that's why one works and one doesn't. It's not that Baywatch inherently can't work. It totally could have worked. It absolutely could have worked. You write a better script, you put in better humor, you do a better job with your characters. Baywatch can work great. And Jumanji is by no means an automatic. Jumanji could have gone south in so many different ways, but they made it work. So I don't think it has anything to do, pursuant to your question, that, is one just inherently more difficult to make entertaining the other? I don't think so. I just think the team behind Baywatch didn't do as good of a job as the team behind Jumanji. And that's just the way it worked out. Anyway, that's how I see it. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Stifler's dad. And Stifler's dad writes, "Hey, John, I'm a big fan and thank you for making my day better than it would be without your show." Well, thank you so much, Stifler's dad. I appreciate that. My questions is, what do you think of The Witcher getting a TV show adaptation on Netflix? And it's always been one of my favorite games, and I'm beyond excited to see what they can do with this material. Well, look, The Witcher 3 is easily one of my favorite games the last couple of years. It's immersive, it's narrative heavy. I know a lot of games these days try to be more narrative heavy, but The Witcher is narrative heavy. And they give us fantastic characters. And really, it's one of those, every year 2 or 3 games come out that you can say, this feels, from a narrative point of view, like it's made for a cinematic piece of storytelling. You've got a rich world, you've got great characters, you've got a nice mythology laid down. All the pieces are there that you could make something good out of it. Now, that goes back again to our Jumanji and Baywatch discussion. By nature, it's not going to work, and by nature, it's not going to fail, but at least you have the starting blocks there to do something good with it. Now, I was one of the people that I would rather see a Witcher movie, per se, but when the announcement came about them doing something on Netflix, I got excited. And I remain excited to this day. It is a game that is ripe with potential, but again, let's keep in mind, it's only potential. This could go south, but it's got potential. Here's the really exciting thing, though. If this could work, let's say they do Witcher and it works great, and people love it and eat it up. That opens a lot of avenues for this new media, the Netflix medium, for people to try to do adaptations of video games, because they've been failing miserably trying to make movies out of these things. Failing miserably. So let's see if maybe they can find a new platform that works better for them. Don't know, we'll have to wait and see. I, for one, am pretty excited. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Blake Schwarz. And Blake Schwarz writes, "We know that there are talks for Tarantino to make a Star Wars or a Star Trek movie, which got me thinking. In 2015, Disney pushed the Hateful Eight out of 70mm screens for Episode 7. What if his Star Trek movie is going to be released on the same day as a Star Wars film to get back at Disney? Which film would win at the box office and general reception, speculative, Tarantino's Star Trek or possibly JJ's Episode 9? Okay, so this would be the equivalent of Andre the Giant fighting Danny DeVito, okay? Let's just get that straight right now. Which would win at the box office if you released a Star Wars movie and a Star Trek movie on the same day? Yeah, Andre versus Danny DeVito. No match. That's no contest. Star Wars would destroy Star Trek at the box office. And look, the #1 all-time Star Trek box office film is somewhere around $400 and something million. I think that was Into Darkness, was the biggest box office movie ever for a Star Trek film. The next one went down. Star Trek Beyond went down. I think it ended up in the $300 million range or something like that. I could be wrong, but it's in the $300 million range, I think. you know, and that's worldwide. Star Wars: The Last Jedi, its opening weekend domestically alone almost beats the all-time #1 Star Trek film internationally. I mean, so there's no competition here. Let's not pretend like it would be a fight. Okay, that would be a stomping of epic proportions. Anyway, so let's go on to another part of your email. What if, like, Quentin Tarantino wanted to... and by the way, the biggest Tarantino box office film of all time is also only in the $400 million range, and that's Django Unchained. That's his biggest film ever. Most of his films don't clear $300 million. So there's absolutely zero reason to believe that a Star Trek film directed by Quentin Tarantino, if going up head-to-head against a Star Wars film, would stand any sort of a chance. It just wouldn't. Now let's go to the other part of your question, saying, what if Tarantino decided to release it? Let me stop you right there. It still surprises me how many more casual film fans don't realize that. A lot of casual film fans think, oh, if the director controls everything. Director controls, you know, the trailers. Director controls when the trailers are released. Director controls when the movie's released. Quentin Tarantino, let me tell you how much say he would have on when the movie would be released. Zero. Paramount, as the distributor, would make the decision when they want to release their film. They would probably give Quentin Tarantino a lot of leeway for how he wanted to make his film, sure. But as far as when they release his film, goose egg. That's how much influence Quentin Tarantino would have over Paramount as to when the movie would be released. And if he ever did think, even in his craziest, drunkest moment, if Quentin Tarantino, who's a master filmmaker, decided to go in a drunken stupor to Paramount and go, hey, you know what, screw Disney for putting Star Wars Episode 7 against my Hateful Eight. I want to get them back. Let's put our Star Trek film and open it on the same day as their next Star Wars film. Paramount would look at him and throw a bucket of cold water in his face and say, okay, Tarantino, go sleep this off. Go sleep it off and come back when you're not going to talk silly. There's no way they would let it happen. So there is no way this would ever conceivably happen. And number two, if they did do it, they would get stomped into oblivion. They know that. There's just no history there. And all the history that is there points to them getting destroyed. So I really don't see how that would ever be a possibility. But hey, it's interesting to think of these weird scenarios. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from another one of my Patreon supporters, Daniel Clements, who writes, let's see, where did it go? Oh, yes. Love the show. My question is regarding your channel. Oh, okay. I know over the years you kind of got burnt out over doing these press junkets. However, if offered, would you do it for Avengers Infinity War? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yeah, in my career, man, I have done a lot of press junkets, like hundreds of press junkets. I mean, it got to the point where I was doing 2 to 3 a week. And basically, for those of you who don't know how the press junket kind of works, it's really kind of simple. The studio books, here's how they mostly go. There are exceptions, that mostly goes, okay? So a studio will book a floor at the Beverly Hills Four Seasons, right? Four Seasons Beverly Hills, that's where most of the junkets I've ever gone to have been. And they book an entire floor of rooms. And so you, as the journalist, you go and show up, and you go to this big suite where it's like the check-in area. And there's a bunch of, and a holding area. So a bunch of other journalists will be in there just hanging around. They'll have a buffet out with some really good food. And you go and check in to say, yeah, I'm here now, blah, blah, blah. And they'll say, okay, we'll let you know when they're ready for you. And then what they'll do is they'll get a bunch of the cast and maybe the director or two and put them in different rooms on that floor. And they'll say to me, John, so let's say we were doing, I don't know, a press junket for Captain America, Civil War, right? So they'll say to me, John, you're first up with Chris Evans. Go down to room 17. So then I go into the hallway, walk down to room 17. They'll have a bunch of chairs in front of Chris Evans's room, and I'll sit down, and maybe 2 other people will be in line in front of me, and we'll just wait. And then somebody comes out of the room, the next person goes in. Someone comes out of the room, and now it's my turn. I go into the room. So I go in the room, and there's Chris Evans sitting in a chair with a camera and lights, and there's another chair across from him. That's where I go and sit down. Sit down, talk to Chris for a second while they get the cameras focused up and ready to go. And they'll say, are you ready to go? And I'll say, I'm ready to go. And they'll go. And then you got 3 minutes. Sometimes 4, sometimes 2. But generally speaking, you got about 3 minutes to ask a couple of questions that he can answer to. And they film it for you. So then when I'm done with Chris Evans in that interview, they'll now go, okay, John, thanks for doing that. You are next up with Paul Rudd. I'll go, okay. And they'll say, he's in room 14. So I walk down the hallway to room 14, and there's another set of stairs, and I sit in front of his room. And I could be sitting there for 10 or 15 minutes, go and interview him. Same thing. They come out, okay, John, next up, you have, I don't know, Robert Downey Jr. Okay, great. Then I walk down to Robert Downey Jr., and you do that. And it's meanwhile, 3 hours of my day has been taken up. 3 hours of my day has been taken up. Not to mention all the time it takes. It takes like 45 minutes just to drive into Beverly Hills. So basically my entire day is shot to do these junket interviews that eventually, and here's why I stopped doing them. I stopped doing them for a couple of reasons. Number one, because they took up ridiculous amounts of my time. But number two is nobody watched them. Nobody watched junket interviews. Nobody watches them. And so, like, I mean, there were some exceptions, obviously. There's this one I did with Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth at the same time. It's kind of legendary. I was in that room with them for like 20 minutes because they were having some camera issues, and I can't remember the last time I laughed that hard. We just sat there laughing like straight for 20 minutes, and it was a lot of fun. That one got a bunch of views. An interview I did with Peter Jackson around when Lord of the Rings was happening, that got some decent views. But I mean, I even did a Robert Downey Jr. one-on-one interview, got like 5,000 views, right? So it was, I eventually had to just evaluate, okay, considering how many man hours it takes to go down and do these things. So first of all, you got to go watch the movie. Then you got to travel to where the junket is. You're there for 3 or 4 hours. You got to come back. Now you got to edit all these things together. You're investing a lot of man hours. That's time and money into these things for what? A video that's going to get 4,000 views? That's just not worth it. So ultimately, I eventually stopped doing them just because there was no point in them. So, the question then becomes, well, John, what if they offered you like Infinity War? Well, of course I would do that. Or if they offered me a Star Wars one, of course I would do that. But they don't invite me to those. Why? Because I don't do any of the other ones. So, which is totally understandable. So while if they invited me to do a Star Wars one, of course I would go and do a Star Wars one. I've never got to do a Star Wars press junket before. That would be fun. Would I do an Infinity War? Sure. There are a couple of movies I would pick out that, yes, I would do a junket for that one, sure. But the thing is, if I'm not doing junkets regularly, why would they bother inviting me to these things? They won't. They're going to invite the people who consistently come out and support their junkets by covering their junkets regularly, which I totally understand. That makes sense. I have no sour grapes about that. I had no sour grapes that I never got invited to do any interviews for Star Wars. I don't have any sour grapes that I don't think I'm going to get invited to do any interviews for Infinity War. No sour grapes because I made the decision to not cover all the other junkets. So it's just that. So really, I would have no right to complain or anything like that. So that's just kind of the way I see that. All right, let's move on now to the final topic, emailed in topic today before we move on to the live stuff. And the final email topic today comes to us from Dave A. And Dave A, and this is probably going to be the big one today. It seems like the allegations against TJ Miller are so serious that Comedy Central canceled his show. Do you think that it's possible Disney/Fox will look to do a spacey with him as in regards to Deadpool? Okay. First of all, what he means by a spacey, as many of you know, Kevin Spacey was a co-star in All the Money in the World, the film that's coming out now, and they decided, since he only shot for 2 weeks, they pulled him out of the movie, even though it was already shot, and replaced all of his scenes with Christopher Plummer. So the question is, should they do that with TJ Miller? Now, some of you may be going, wait a minute, what's going on with TJ Miller? What happened? Okay, so here's the thing. A number of years ago, when TJ Miller was attending, I believe it's George Washington University, he got into a relationship, and as the story goes, and you guys should look this up and read, I'm not going to go through all the details myself, but the reports are online, that he assaulted. They're calling it sexual assault. It wasn't sexual assault, because sexual assault can be almost anything. It was assault. At least the allegations are just straight up assault. Because apparently he was dating this girl, he was having sex with a girl, and started punching her and choking her, and to things that she was getting bruises and busted lips and stuff like that, and her roommates were getting really concerned, and other people in her dorm could hear what was going on, and blah, 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 blah. They made it go away. Eventually this girl came forward again, and there's a bunch of people who were roommates at the time apparently corroborating her story, and it's just getting messy. It's getting messy. So the question is, should they pull TJ Miller, especially with today, what's going on today? Should they pull TJ Miller? Should they pull a Spacey and remove TJ Miller from Deadpool 2? Now, let me clarify something, Dave A., that you put into your email, saying as a result of these accusations, they canceled because TJ's got a show, or had a show, on Comedy Central. I can't remember the name of it, but he had this little show on Comedy Central, and they canceled it. Comedy Central specifically put out a statement that said this was a decision that was made before these allegations came out. They didn't publicly announce it, but they said, we had made the decision to cancel this specific show anyway. So it is a misnomer to say TJ Miller's show got canceled because of these allegations. Comedy Central says that's not the case. We had already made the decision to cancel it, but we weren't going to announce it for a few weeks, but we're going to announce it now. So that's what happened there. So let's get to the real big question here. Should Deadpool consider pulling out TJ Miller? Now, I have seen a number of people online already, even in our chat board just before the show started today. There were a few people, completely understandably and completely correctly, by the way, saying things in chat boards like, hey, last time I checked, we live in a place where we're supposed to function on the basis of innocent until proven guilty. And I cannot agree with you more. Cannot agree with you more. We do need to have a presumption of innocence in a legal sense in a society that we live in if we are to function as a society. You know, back during the Inquisitions and during the witch hunts, what would happen during the Spanish Inquisition, as a matter of fact, was that, you know, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Like, there's a local businessman who didn't like a candle maker, who didn't like that this other candle maker was making more money than him. He would go to the authorities, hey, Billy Bob down there is actually a heretic. That's all he needed to do was the accusation, and the heretic got hauled away. So we do have to have those types of protections. But here's the thing. We're not talking about a legal case. We're talking about, should Fox consider pulling all the scenes with TJ Miller and possibly reshoot a bunch of his scenes with another actor. We're not talking about law. We're not talking about a legal proceeding. Yes, in law you need, and when it comes to a legal proceeding in court, you have to have innocence until proven guilty. Absolutely. You do. However, we're not talking about a court of law here. This is where it gets sticky, and this is what makes this tricky. Is we're not talking about a court of law. We're talking about a company that has a product coming out that this controversy could affect sales of their product. We're talking about not a court of law, you know, convicting TJ Miller and sending him to jail. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a company, in this case Fox, who has a product that may be hurt because they have this guy in the movie for whatever reason. For whatever reason. Now, some people would have said to me, you know, earlier this morning, but John, it's not fair to TJ Miller to even consider pulling him out. This isn't about fair. Who said anything about fair? This isn't about TJ Miller. This is about Deadpool 2. And from a studio's point of view, your first priority is to the movie and what's best for the health of the movie and what's best for the success of the movie. Like, was Kevin Spacey convicted of anything causing Sony to pull him out of All the Money in the World? No. But they just knew our movie's going to get buried if we just put it out in theaters as is with Kevin Spacey in it right now. In the current environment and in the current climate, our movie will get killed if we do that. So they made a business decision that had nothing to do with whether it's fair to Kevin or unfair to Kevin. That's not the question. The question is, what is best for the movie? Kevin Spacey got paid. So he came in, did his work, and he got paid. Whether they keep him in the movie or not, he got paid. So that's not, we're not talking about taking away his paycheck or anything like that. So now, if you're looking at this Deadpool 2 scenario, put yourself into the position of a studio executive. And the question being put to you is, what is best for this movie? What is best for Deadpool 2 right now? Is it best for Deadpool 2 to possibly keep TJ Miller in, move forward, and put the movie out and hope for the best. Maybe that is what's best for the movie. Or is what's best for the movie going, hey, we're still a ways away from this movie releasing. We have time. TJ Miller is, like, look, I have no idea if TJ Miller is in 15 minutes of this movie. I have no idea if he's in an hour and 15 minutes of this movie. Obviously, his role in the first Deadpool was pretty small, so let's just assume it's the same kind of role. You could probably reshoot his scenes in a week to 2 weeks, no problem. So do you as a studio executive go, what is best for our movie? Is it best right now to avoid the controversy altogether, take TJ Miller out of the film now, either cast a new actor or just edit his character out and replace it with somebody else, or replace it with some other footage that have to do with other scenes? You got to ask yourself that question. So I want to put it to you guys to jump down to the comments section or fire in a live comment or something about this. But I'm going to ask you both, what would you do as an executive? But in answering that question, you have to take out two things. Do not include either of these two things. Do not include the innocent until proven guilty argument, because we're not talking about a court of law. And do not put in that's unfair to TJ, because what's fair or not fair to TJ is not the question. The question is, what is best for the movie? And I will tell you this right now. I am a big fan of TJ Miller. You guys have heard me talk about TJ Miller before. I think he is a unique talent. I find him, like, even when he's in a bad Transformers movie, he's the best part of a bad Transformers movie. I think he was great in the first Deadpool. I loved his work in the one with Baymax, Big Hero 6. I am a fan of TJ Miller. I'll say that right up front. I'm a fan. And I don't know that I believe, although, like, with all the witnesses they claim to have talked to and all this kind of stuff, it doesn't look good. But I'm going to say right now, I haven't made a judgment about whether I believe these accusations against TJ Miller or not. I haven't. However, if I'm the head of that studio, you can't convince me that what's best for this movie right now is just to keep TJ in it. Not in today's current climate, with everything else that's going on in this sort of a thing. And if I'm the studio, I probably call in TJ and say, look, I think you did great work in this movie. This really saddens me, but the best decision for our movie right now is to remove your scenes and replace it either with other footage or to recast you and put somebody else in. It sucks, but that's the position we're in. I'm not blaming you. I'm not saying this is your fault. I'm not saying you're innocent. I'm not saying you're guilty. Nothing like that. But what is best for my movie, if I'm the studio executive, what is clearly best for my movie right now is I'm replacing you. And I can tell you that's probably what I would do in this situation. Make sure TJ still gets paid. He gets his paycheck, all that kind of stuff. But remember, this isn't a court of law. So I am really curious to know what you guys have to say about this and what your thoughts are on this. I'm sure this is going to come up a bunch when we get into the live segment of the show. Okay, with that out of the way, it is time for us to go into the live part of the show. But before we get in there, I just want to remind you guys about the thing that keeps my channel up, alive, and ticking, and that is my Patreon page. Yes, this is my shameless plug. But listen, guys, do me a favor. If you enjoy my programs or you spend any time watching my programs, do me a favor. Go on over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. Take a look at the page there and get all the information about A, what it means to be a Patreon supporter, B, how being a Patreon supporter makes this site even function and work, and see what are the benefits of being a Patreon supporter. Benefits like a lot of you guys like audio-only podcasts. We provide audio-only podcasts of the John Campea Show, The Weekly Hero, Star Wars Talk Tuesday, all for our things. We have a Facebook group that's exclusive for our Patreon members where we do like a short, like 10-minute after show. After the show is done, we go a little bit deeper. I do Q&As on there. There's a bunch of different things. Anyway, do me a favor and just check that out. And if after checking it out, you decide to become one of my Patreon supporters, awesome. If you decide not to be, no problem. I'm just happy you guys are here being film fans with us. Okay, with that out of the way, let's dive into the live questions today. And we start off with the first live question. And our first live question today comes to us from Manuel Fernandez, who writes, hey, John, did you have a chance to see the Nutcracker trailer? Yeah, I did. Disney's new Nutcracker trailer. Look, I don't know a lot about it. They didn't give away very much, which is fine. It's just a first trailer. I thought it looked beautiful, looked gorgeous. So it has whetted my appetite to see more and to get more and try to get a better feel for this movie. Right now, it's just an announcement video, an announcement trailer, and it worked on that level. It looks gorgeous. So I'm curious to see more. Until I see more, I can't really form any more of an opinion than that, but I am curious to see more. All right. Next one comes to us from ZRJro, who writes, Justice League opened to less theaters, maybe that hurt it too. No. See, here's the thing. Sometimes people like to look at the number of theaters it opened up in, right? And if it opened in like 300 less theaters, like it still opened like 3,800 theaters. Oh, but it opened in 300 less theaters. That hurt its box office. No, it didn't. The only time a few less theaters hurts the box office is if you already have existing numbers that would have sold out other shows. Like, having more theaters won't make any difference if there are still empty seats in the other theaters. That's the thing that a lot of people, like, oh, we put it out in 10 theaters and it made $100. Well, that means if we put it in 1,000 theaters, it'll make $10,000. No. Like, it was in enough, Justice League was in enough theaters that anybody in the United States of America was within quick driving distance of a theater that was playing it. And there were empty seats in those theaters. The only way adding more theaters helps is if those other theaters are maxing out to capacity and they needed more room to add more people. Now, that's a problem you very rarely run into. You ran into it with Star Wars, obviously the second biggest opening of all time. You're going to run into it probably with Avengers Infinity War, but a movie that only made $94 million opening weekend, the problem was not enough theaters because every theater was sold out. That's just not the case. It would have made more than $94 million if that was the case. So that really doesn't play into it. All right. Thanks a lot, ZRJRO. Next one comes to us from Cameron Belgrade, who writes, what famous movie should get the disaster artist treatment and have a movie made about its production? Well, there have been a couple in history, but you have to pick like a really infamous movie to do that. Like, I mean, I don't know. You could do a fictional Star Wars one. Like, what was that one fan film that was made? Like, something about George Lucas, Love Letter of George Lucas, or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. But if you wanted to make a fictional one, Star Wars would probably work since it's a big cultural phenomenon right now. Maybe that would work. I can't really think of any others that are on that level of The Room, because everybody knows The Room. So that's the only one I can really think of off the top of my head, is maybe you do a fake fictional one of Star Wars and make it a comedy. Maybe that could work. Not sure. Interesting question, though, Cameron. All right, next one comes to us from Manuel Fernandez, who writes, are you concerned that the Disney/Fox deal will result in fewer opportunities for artists and filmmakers, resulting in less diverse films being made? No, there are dozens of other studios out there, tons of independent little film companies that are making, giving lots of opportunities to young filmmakers and writers and directors and stuff like that. Just Fox disappearing, that really won't make that big of an impact because, like I said, there are so many other equally as large and much smaller bodies out there that are producing films. And like, there's more independent film being produced today than any other time in history. So, because it's so much easier today to make an independent film than it was like 20 years ago. So the opportunities are out there. The opportunities are out there. Adam Griffin writes, Cloverfield 3 opens in 6 weeks. No trailer. Worried? Nah. When they decide to drop a trailer, that's simply a marketing question. The thing that would worry me is if, like in the case of Greatest Showman, a movie that I have been dying to see and was one of my most anticipated films of the year, they don't lift the review embargo until the day the movie comes out. See, that sort of stuff concerns me. Marketing? Marketing doesn't concern me. Unless they put out crappy trailers, that concerns me. But the fact that they're deciding to hold off really doing a big push on a marketing campaign, yeah, that's just the strategy they're deciding to use. You know me, guys. I don't think there's any need to have trailers come out 6 months in advance. I think that's all a waste of time and money. Like, wait till you're like 2 or 3 months out before you launch your marketing campaign. But 6 weeks out? No, I mean, it's curious. It's interesting. Because you don't normally see wide release films waiting 6 weeks out till they finally launch their first trailer. You don't normally see that happen. So it's curious, but concerning? Nah, I have no concerns about it. Colt Royster writes, about to see Jumanji in 30 minutes. Also, are you a fan of seeing a movie in 3D? Haven't seen a 3D movie since Jackass 3. 3D movies should get gonorrhea in the face and die. I hate 3D. I hate 3D. It's such a useless, pointless gimmick. You know, and every time I've gone into a 3D movie, I'm like 5 minutes into it. You guys heard me complain about this. I just don't understand what's the point of having these directors and these cinematographers craft these beautiful, color-rich images, and then the first thing we do when we walk into a movie theater is slap tinted film over our eyes. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have never been in a 3D movie where I've lasted more than 5 minutes without wanting to take those damn glasses off. It is a useless gimmick to me. Some people love 3D, and that's awesome, but I cannot wait for 3D to go away and die. I just cannot wait for that to happen. I hate 3D. Anyway. Which is funny, which is unfortunate because I know a couple of people, like really good people, who like work in the 3D conversion business, and like 3D movies is their livelihood. So I feel bad saying that, but that is my honest opinion. I absolutely detest 3D. Tony 2 writes, "Hey John, should we be worried for The Last Jedi? After the negative fan reaction, could The Last Jedi end up a flop even with its strong..." No. First of all, the majority, be very clear about this, the majority of people going to see The Last Jedi love it. Now, that doesn't mean there's an insignificant number of people who dislike it. There are people who dislike it, and it's not an insignificant number of people who dislike it. But don't be fooled by anybody trying to make you think the majority of people... No, the majority of people, the cinema score, which is the only real audience test score because it verifies that people have seen the movie. It shows that the critic reaction is there. Even the IMDb score is high. And not that you should ever really listen or rely on the IMDb score, but if you want to take, you know, anecdotal things, if you're going to take the Rotten Tomatoes one, which operates on the same basis that the IMDb one does, then you got to take them both. I don't think you should take either, but whatever. Make no mistake, the majority of people who are seeing The Last Jedi are loving it, but there are people out there who don't. And there's nothing wrong with that they don't like it. Because all film is subjective. I wish more people liked it, but they don't. There you go. But worried for it? No. Look, I've already made a video saying that Star Wars The Last Jedi will take more than a 60%, like a 60% or greater drop in week 2. I totally believe that. And part of the reason is because of some of the very vocal negative reaction from a certain segment of the fan base. Absolutely. That's going to have an effect. I do not deny that at all. As a matter of fact, I make the argument for it. I think it will. But it's also got big competition against it. It's already made a huge amount of money. I don't even know what the worldwide numbers are. Actually, you know what? Let me just pull this up quick. I'm going to see if they've got some worldwide numbers here. The Last Jedi box office. Let me just see what they're saying about that. Oh, maybe if I actually clicked on the box. The Last Jedi box office. Now, let me see what we got. Okay, so far, all right, the movie's been out. What day is today? Wednesday? Okay, the movie's been out for 5 days. It's made $516 million already. $516 million already. So are we in any sort of danger of Star Wars The Last Jedi flopping? Well, in like 6 days, it's made, 5 or 6 days, it's made $516 million worldwide. So, no, I don't think there's any cause for concern about Star Wars The Last Jedi flopping, per se. I mean, it's about $100 million away, which it'll probably make in the next day or two, from already being profitable. And then it'll go on and it'll still make over $1 billion. And remember, I've said all year that Star Wars The Last Jedi will not reach $2 billion. I've said that all year. It ain't going to hit $2 billion. I've never doubted that for a second. There are just too many unique circumstances around Star Wars The Force Awakens that gave it an advantage. And I've said all year, Star Wars The Last Jedi is never going to hit $2 billion, but it'll join the $1 billion club for sure. So yeah, don't be fooled. Do not be fooled. Will Star Wars The Last Jedi flop? Give me a break. Ben Rayner writes, are you going to go see The Room when it gets a wide release for one day in January? You think it will do decent in the box office? No, I have no interest in seeing it. Look, it's a terrible movie. It's a fun, terrible movie, but I've seen it. And I got a kick out of it, but I'm not going to I'm not going to waste a night of my life and spend money to go and watch this movie that I already know is terrible and bad. And I've already gotten my kick out of it. And I love The Disaster Artist. I'll go see that again, but no, I'm not going to waste my time to go see The Room again. Will it do decent box office? Well, it depends what you mean by decent. Will it make $1 million? If you consider $1 million decent, sure. I could see it making $1 million. Why not? If you mean decent as in 15 million, I don't see that happening. But hey, crazier things have happened, right? Let's not discount it completely out of hand. All right, let's go down to this. Ali Hussein writes, hey, John, who is your favorite Lucifer? Tom Ellis Lucifer or Supernatural's Lucifer? Well, I've liked the Supernatural Lucifer very much, who is also a star on Lost, by the way. But Tom Ellis's Lucifer, that Lucifer kills me. I love that show. Love that show. I think Tom Ellis as Lucifer is my single favorite character on TV right now. Not that Lucifer is my number one show on TV right now, but I think Tom Ellis as Lucifer is my number one character on TV right now. All right, and by the way, guys, I forgot to mention this a little bit earlier. If you haven't sent in a super chat yet, please don't send in any more super chats. I think we got more than enough to last us for the rest of the show. Let's see. Manuel Fernandez writes, what's your favorite new superhero show this year? Legion, Runaways, Gifted, Defenders, or Punisher? Inhumans never happened. You have no proof. Woo! That's a tough one because I'm telling you, I hated Legion at first, but ended up loving it. I am loving the Runaways. I am liking Runaways more and more each episode that comes out. I am digging this show. Big fan of Gifted. I like the Defenders. I didn't love it, but I like Defenders. And Punisher was just psychotically good. I'll go Punisher. By the narrowest of margins, I'll go Punisher. But you know what? I reserve the right to change my vote once I finish seeing this season of The Runaways. Once The Runaways finishes the season and I'm able to actually have seen the whole thing, I might change my mind after that. So just hold out for that. All right. Daniel Briggs writes, I know all movies are subjective, but my sister said the Emoji Movie is the same as Inside Out. Is putting her up for adoption too harsh for a punishment? No, I would put her up for adoption. Or make her one of those kids you see in horror movies that you lock away in the basement and you just slide like a plate of rice under the door for her once every 2 days. That's probably where she belongs. Of course, all films are subjective, absolutely. And I have no doubt there are people out there that like Emoji Movie more than they like Inside Out. That's crazy to me, but that's the subjectivity of film. And that means odds are there are people out there who think that way. And if that's the way they think, nothing wrong with it. But yeah, lock her in the basement. All right. Well, just in case you're taking me seriously and you're kind of a crazy person, let me emphasize that I'm joking about that just to cover myself legally. All right. There we go. Next one comes to us from TJ Thomas, who writes, in The Last Jedi, well, you know what? I'm going to just in case that's a spoiler question, I'm going to shoot off from that. Fire me in a question to Star Wars Talk Tuesday and mention, let me just see who the name was, TJ Thomas. TJ Thomas, put your name in it, mention this, and I will guarantee I will ask your question on Star Wars Talk Tuesday next Tuesday because you did send it in. But I got some people asking me trying not to take some Star Wars spoiler questions on the main show because I did the other day and some people were upset by that and I apologize for that. But yeah, sorry about that. All right, Luke1234 writes, would love to see Paul Verhoeven direct a Star Wars movie. Well, I don't know about that. I don't know that I'd see it as a fit, but he is a good director. And my whole philosophy is, hey, should X director direct X film? As long as X director is a good director, then sure, I'm all for it. So why not? It wouldn't be my first choice, so I'll be honest with you. Let's see. Thoughts on rap getting abuse from Spacey fans? I'm not quite sure what it is you're talking about, so I can't address that. Ben Rayner writes, are you still going to do a review for Showman even if you don't like the movie? Curious to hear your thoughts. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Ann and I are going to go see Greatest Showman tonight, so I'll probably do my review for Greatest Showman tomorrow is probably when I'll have it up. But yes, I will do a review for Greatest Showman. I have been looking forward to it, but good or bad, I'm going to do my review. Alan Jensen writes, updates on Crank 3. Crank 2 was a masterpiece of crazy. I love the Crank films. And I am admittedly a little biased when it comes to the Crank films because I know the guys who write and direct them. Mark Neveldine and Brian Taylor. They're friends of mine. So I got to be careful. But I know that there are people involved in this project that really want to make Crank 3. And my fingers are crossed that it's going to happen. Nothing's for sure, absolutely, but I know that a number of the major party involved really want to make it happen, including the studio wants it to happen. But there's one or two people involved that don't want it to, aren't sure they want it to happen. So there's a few things to clear up. We'll just see how they work. But I would love a Crank 3 because you're right. I thought Crank 2 was just a symphony of ridiculousness, like just a symphony of ridiculousness in a really good way. I enjoyed it a lot. It was just crazy. KW Garrett 83 writes, would you have predicted of the 4 movies out today, Jumanji is the only fresh one, Downsizing 57, Pitch Perfect 3, 37, G Show, Greatest Showman, and Jumanji 80%. No, that's a little bit crazy. Downsizing, I thought looked like an Oscar contender. Greatest Showman, I thought looked like an Oscar contender. And I didn't think Jumanji would be all that great. And Pitch Perfect, it is what it is. Look, I really liked Pitch Perfect 1. I did. It was one of those pleasant surprise movies to me. I put off watching it. I was late to the game. Then I watched it. I'm like, this is actually pretty good and pretty fun. But then I did not like 2. I did not like number 2. Now, I have seen Pitch Perfect 3. I'm going to try to do a review for that today, so I'm not going to say anything else about it. But no, I never would have predicted that. And with Downsizing and Greatest Showman opening as well, I never would have guessed that Jumanji would have the highest critic rating out of them. I never would have guessed it. All right. Jose M. writes, when is your Greatest Showman review coming? 46% on Rotten Tomatoes. Hopefully, I'm going to see it tonight with my wife, so hopefully tomorrow we'll get a chance to put that review up. Has there been any new information? This one comes from ARCast6, who writes, has there been any new information on the third Robert Downey Jr. / Guy Ritchie Sherlock? Thanks. Always enjoy the show. The last I heard about it was that everybody's on board. They're just trying to work out a schedule. That's the last I heard. Jude Law's on board. I heard Robert Downey Jr.'s on board. I heard Guy Ritchie's on board. Everybody wants to do it. They're just trying to work out scheduling to make it happen. The Sherlock Holmes films are a lot like Pitch Perfect to me. I really liked the first one. I thought the second one was okay, but I thought the second Sherlock Holmes was a definite step down. I thought it was a step down. But I'm looking forward to them doing a number 3. Because I like Guy Ritchie. I even liked his, King Arthur movie that was out this past year. I even like that movie, so I'm down for it. Let's see. Let's see where I lost it here. Every once in a while, it does this big jump. And where are we? Oh, there we are. The Doctor's 13th Blu-ray Reviews writes, hey, John, Andrew from somewhere. Do you like Doctor Who? I did. As a kid, I used to watch all the old Doctor Who ones. That was the one when, who was it, Tom something? The guy who had the big hat and the red scarf. That was when I watched Doctor Who. I used to watch those reruns as a kid. I'm not into Doctor Who today, which makes a lot of people gasp. But to be fair, I haven't given it much of a chance. I've watched like 1 or 2 episodes that didn't work for me per se, so I never really jumped back on board. So maybe if I watched, a good 7 or 8 episodes, maybe then I would catch the fever of it. But I don't count myself as a big Doctor Who fan. Again, it's not like I've watched 20 episodes and I think they suck. Not at all. I've watched like 1 of the modern day Doctor Who episodes. Didn't quite work for me and I never went back to it. So maybe if I watch it, I'd become a fan. Ali Hussein writes, what villain do you want to see after Thanos in the MCU? No idea. Again, to me, I like to leave those up to the filmmakers to come back to me with. I really don't have anybody in mind. Maybe depending if the X-Men rights, they get this all sorted out in time, maybe Magneto becomes the next big bad guy. I don't know. Manuel Fernandez writes, I know you don't think the Fox deal is something to worry about, but you have to admit that Disney having that much consolidated power can seem a bit scary. With 35% of the market share and 27% of the film industry. No, it's irrelevant. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. For each of the other studios, this is the most important thing. For each of the other studios, nothing has changed with their market share or their business at all. Doesn't matter if Disney suddenly becomes 10 times bigger. It doesn't change anything. And Disney, by the way, will only have as much market share as people go to see their movies, which is true of any studio. So, again, I really think people are getting too worked up over this. I really do. I mean, you know me, I'm not thrilled with this deal. I don't like the deal. Now, granted, I understand why they did it, and they did it for their TV properties, and they did it for their streaming service. I understand that. But I'm more of a movie guy, so I think in terms of X-Men and Deadpool. I want X-Men and Deadpool to stay separate from the MCU. I love the MCU. I do. But I want them separate. I like that they feel like a totally different set of movies. I like that they've been able to take chances. Like Logan and Deadpool and what they're doing with the upcoming New Mutants movie. I love that. I don't want them going back to Disney. But they are. And it's not that big of a deal. It really isn't. At least not from my point of view. All right. Next one. Dean Seeley writes, can't GT into D... you know what, guys? Please don't write your stuff in like as if you're putting in a 50-letter tweet. Because I don't want to try to sit here and interpret what it is you're saying. But thank you anyway. My Opinions writes, "Hey John, I'm back. Are you up to date on Gotham Season 4? I'm almost up to date. I have been watching Gotham Season 4. I think I'm just 1 or 2 episodes behind. And I've been enjoying it. This has been my favorite season of Gotham so far. And I think the stuff I hate the most is anything that has to do with Bruce Wayne. The Bruce Wayne stuff is irritating the hell out of me. The funny thing is, I love the Alfred character, but I'm getting real sick of the Bruce Wayne character. Real sick of it. But, you know, the main guy of the show, Gordon, I'm loving everything they're doing with him in this episode or this season so far. So just going to have to wait and see what happens once I get caught up. My Opinions writes again, also, John, where do you rank Star Wars Holiday Special? What are you talking about? That doesn't exist. Don't you remember? Doesn't exist. Tristan Turner just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, Tristan. Dean Seeley writes in, just puts in a super chat. Thank you so much, Dean. Appreciate that. Tristan Turner writes in again, been watching you for years and heard you on multiple occasions dismiss Dragon Ball Z for being too kiddie. But at the same time, love Frozen. Help me understand. This is the exact same thing. The exact same thing that we were talking about Fast and the Furious versus Transformers, or Jumanji versus Baywatch. And I don't ever recall saying the reason I don't like Dragon Ball Z is that it's too kiddie. But, I mean, that sounds like something I would say because that's how it struck me. It does strike me as too kiddie. That's just how it strikes me. Frozen is a great story. Frozen is just told in a way that it has much better characters, from my point of view at any rate, tell a great narrative storyline with some wonderful musical numbers, and it just comes together much better as a movie. So just because... well, wait a minute. One's an animated thing for kids, and the other's an animated thing for kids. How can you like one and not like the other? How can you say one is too childish and one isn't? Well, because they're not. They are different. One comes across to me as a little bit more childish. One does not. Now, again, I am not trying to dissuade you at all, Tristan, from not liking Dragon Ball Z. I have some of my best friends are huge Dragon Ball Z fanatics. Love it. And that's great. I think that's wonderful. And I hope for you that they make a big motion picture about it and do it justice and do it great. I hope they do for you. But if you're going to ask me and you want me to give you my honest opinion, I never got into it even though I tried. I tried getting into it because a couple of my friends really love it. And it just struck me as childish. But hey, I'm sure there are things I love that other people would look at and say, John, those are childish. Okay, that's the subjectivity of film. Nothing wrong with that. But that's why it didn't work for me. Manuel Fernandez writes in, do you still watch cartoons? They have gotten much smarter and better written the past few years. I think you would love Gravity Falls, Avatar, Legend of Korra, and Steven Universe. Basically, no. I only because I don't watch a lot of TV. Like, the number of shows I watch, you can count on my fingers. I mean, that's it. I don't. I mean, I'll watch Family Guy now and again, and I love Archer. Archer, I think, is fantastic. But that's just because they're just outrageously raunchy comedy. But I haven't had a chance to watch those. But you're not the only one to tell me that shows like Legends of Korra is fantastic, that Avatar is fantastic. I've heard a lot of people tell me that. I just have never had the time to get around and start watching them. That's the only thing. So I don't have any good or bad opinions about them at all. Robert Johnson writes, put a poop emoji or something over TJ Miller and redo the voice. It's Deadpool, and they could find something to make a joke about it. Here's the problem, Robert. You make a joke about it, you're drawing attention to it. And that is something that I think the studio is probably wanting to do the opposite of. You'd want to draw attention away from this issue if you're the studio. And while that sounds like a really funny thing to do, I'm on board with you, it will probably not have the desired effect. It wouldn't have the desired effect. So I think the effect is trying to get attention away from that and just focus people's attention on the movie itself rather than the controversy. You do what you're suggesting, you're just highlighting the controversy, and that just might tick some people off. But it would be funny. It would be funny. All right, James Dixon just sends in a super chat. Thank you, James. Adam K writes, what happened to your weekend box office reports? I kind of been folding those into Sunday's show. But it's funny that you mentioned that because I was thinking that after this past week, I should just start doing a Sunday box office report video again. You know what? I think I'm going to do that. Probably not this Sunday because this Sunday is Christmas Eve and I'm going to be traveling to Canada. But I think I will start back up with the box office reports. I tried for a while just merging those in with that day's John Campea Show, but it's probably better to do it as a separate video. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Thanks a lot for bringing that up, Adam. Okay, just a couple more here and then we're going to be done. Ben Rayner writes, as a fan of TJ's and I love his stuff, I think Disney/Fox should replace him and maybe have Wade make a small inside joke. Again, I think making a joke about it would just offend some people. And I'm not opposed to offending some people over certain things, but probably not over this. So and again, I don't think they'd want to draw any attention to it. Devontae Brown writes, thoughts on Narcos Season 4 tease, new casting and song. Haven't seen the tease. Big fan of Narcos. Love the show, but I've not seen the Season 4 tease yet, so I can't really comment on that. Gemma XXZ writes, Ridley Scott's new film is getting Oscar reviews. That's All the Money in the World. It's getting some. It's getting some great reviews. It's not getting all great reviews. I don't know about. I think there is a possibility for Christopher Plummer to get a Best Supporting Actor nomination, just because of all the circus that surrounded him coming in and what incredibly weird circumstances it was, and for him to come in like that last second and actually deliver a killer performance. That might be enough to get him an Academy Award nomination. As far as Best Picture, I don't think so. But we'll see. Devontae Brown writes, Narcos now has Mexico, Diego Luna, and Michael Pena. Oh, is Michael Pena in it? Okay, you got my attention. You really got. I knew they were moving it to Mexico because they ended Season 3 with them saying they were going to be taking it to Mexico. I did not know Michael Pena had joined it. That's intriguing to me. David Hendry just sends in a super chat. Thank you, David. Kamikaze Cobra 718 writes, bring the filthy Camp Zone, RIP Everyday Struggle. Thank you so much, Kamikaze. I appreciate that. Let's see. Angel Chang writes, what would you say is the perfect amount of time passed before we can talk spoilers for any movie freely? For me, 1 month after the physical release. Well, if by physical release you mean home video, that's where I stand on that. Totally open, free spoiler discussion should be available to everybody to do about 4 to 6 weeks, I think, after a movie has come out on home video. Because by then, if you're interested in that movie, you had its full theatrical run, opportunity to go and see it in theaters. Then it was in theaters. It was, marinated for a couple of months. Then it came out on home video. You've had now weeks and weeks to sit down and watch that movie if you wanted. To me, if you haven't seen a movie by the time it's completely done its theatrical run and it's been on home video for like 6 weeks already, then you're really not all that interested in it. To me, that's the reality. And maybe you have a different opinion, and that's cool. Maybe I'm wrong. But my thought process is, if you've gone through that huge chunk of time and never watched the movie, even though you had the opportunity to go to the theater and you've had weeks of opportunity to watch it at home and you haven't, then I may want to suggest that you're not all that interested in the movie anyway. Therefore, it shouldn't affect you too much to hear a spoiler or two. So my kind of thing is about 4 to 6 weeks. I'll go a little bit later. I'll say 6 weeks. 6 weeks after it releases on home video, I think should be open and fair game to discuss spoilers ad nauseum. That's just my thought. And final one today comes to us from Koa. And Koa writes, IMAX or the AMC Prime? Oh, that's easy. No questions asked. No questions asked. AMC Prime. AMC Prime kicks the snot out of IMAX. Now, IMAX and AMC Prime do things a little bit differently. Like if you get IMAX, like a true IMAX theater, 70 millimeter, there's something there that other theaters can't do. But the AMC Prime, I mean, with its leather, like some of the most comfortable leather recliners I've ever been in, on top of that Dolby Atmos sound system, on top of that, their new Dolby dual laser projection system with the deepest blacks, the richest colors I've ever seen. It's just the best movie-going experience I think you can have right now in theater. So I would absolutely, if I had to pick between the two, IMAX or AMC Prime, I pick Prime every single time. But that's just my opinion. All right, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. Listen, don't forget, you got a thought or opinion about any of the topics we discussed here today, jump down to the comments section below and leave me your thoughts. Make sure you click the thumbs up button. And guys, We have over 100,000 subscribers here already, but we've got room for a lot more. Click that subscribe button, become one of the newest subscribers to my YouTube channel, and of course, follow me on Twitter and social media simply at John Campea. That will do it for me for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. My name is John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.